astrological terms, all the way back to ancient Assyria, right up until about the 7th, 8th century. Hello and thank you for stopping by Britain's Hidden History. If you are interested in finding out the version of British history that used to be taught in the schools, that used to be widely accepted and is known as the authentic history of Britain, then you have come to the right place. Were the Britons descended from Troy? When did the Trojan Wars happen? Are the lost tribes of Israel alive and well and living in Wales? Is it possible to read hieroglyphics Welsh using Caermead? The birth of Western Christianity, did that take place in Britain? Was the Trojan War in Cambridge? The myth of a Roman invasion, and of course the stories of King Arthur, the historical King Arthur, and there's two of them. We look at the works of Wilson and Blackett, people like Fomenko, Velikovsky, all these different sources, Commons Beaumont, Anthony Thom, looking at the ancient history of Britain, how the star mounds, how things are laid out by astrological terms, all the way back to ancient Assyria, right up until about the 7th, 8th century, well, up until Norman times really, and we can even look a bit at the myth of that. So if this sounds like the sort of thing you're interested in, please join in. Join this rapidly growing community. There are so many people out there researching, coming back with amazing finds, both from the books and from the places. So Thursday evening, 8 o'clock UK time, there's a show every week, includes interviews with people out there finding things, loads of fun and games. It's a nice light-hearted channel, so please keep it family friendly, be polite to each other. And then most days of the week, almost every day now, there's a video up, a little bite-sized chunk of history for you to think about and the evidence that goes with it. So please welcome aboard, be active, join the chat groups, join the Facebook groups, do the whole thing. Get involved, use your grey matter, and find out what is going on with this Britain's hidden history.
Well, I'm Paul Challenger again, and welcome. Britain's Hidden History Live Show number 129. Shall we start today's show with a new video from Arnie? Nagged him enough and he's come good. So this is his latest video, violin practice. Well done, Arnie. He's coming along great, isn't he? Well, March the 17th was St. Patrick's Day, and many will have seen Ross's take on Ireland's favourite Welshman, Patrick. So let's be reminded of Ross's take.
Hello and welcome, croeso, or today I have to say filta, which is my attempt at Irish Gaelic, because it's March the 17th, which as everyone knows is today when everyone celebrates Ireland's favourite Welshman, St. Patrick. born not far from here, near Cowbridge. Now, by what? Well, you stop believing with coincidences after a while, because I'm proofing and preparing the reissue of King Arthur Conspiracy, and the second volume of that is all about migrations from Britain to America. And one of the things the writers point out is the snake mounds, and how this ties in with the story of St. Patrick casting the snakes out of Ireland. Alright, so just give you an idea here. I don't know why it does that whenever I press my number 2 button. There's chapter 18, Snakes Fort, Pottery and Symbols. And the thing it picks out here is that we got the Wallam. That's weird. Why does it do this when only when I record videos? There we are. Right, so you got the Wallam, Ollam and the Lenape histories of the Delaware Nation contain a number of cryptic references to a people who are identified as the Snake People, and they are the enemies of the Delaware. I think this ties in with the Conan stories as well, which kind of originate in this area. I'm doing more research on that, put more on it soon. These strange mentions are perhaps identifications of the people who built the serpent mounds that have been found in the Midwest regions. Long, winding mounds of stone and earth were constructed so as to resemble great serpents with a circle or globe in their jaws, as if it were about to be swallowed. So I've just done a quick, hang on, God, come on, just a quick Google search, that's all. And as you can see here, it's quite spectacular. You can see it really is, it winds around. It's even called a serpent mound. I think on the sign, even to this day, they call them serpent mounds. And what Wilson Blackett doing, you can see a trail here. And you got the earth being swallowed by the serpent, which could just be a coincidence, could be Native American. I mean, that's the official policy. Nothing before Columbus. It's a doctrine. No amount of evidence could change that. And I've also got on my videos an interview, you can see, looking at, like, I think it was a million miles of walls, winding snakes like this. Now, this ties in with St. Patrick, because one of his great claims, as I'm sure you're aware, is that he's supposed to have rid Ireland of snakes. But, I mean, it's a really nonsense story when you think about it. For a start, in Britain, there's hardly any snakes. I mean, there's grass snakes, slow worms. Then you've got adders, stroke vipers, which are poisonous, unlikely to kill you, but they are slightly poisonous. You don't have those two poisonous snakes. In Ireland, we do have, I mean, there's a story in the book where Wilson and Blackett has shown a 4-foot long grass snake. So that doesn't make any sense. And what was he casting out? It's a bit of a fairy tale anyway. More likely, it seems to be that it refers to the conflict going on, because the story of St. Patrick, as you can read about in St. Patrick Identified, which is another book we have for sale, written by Baron Blackett, is that some more pictures, that he was very much pushing the Roman Church as opposed to the ancient religions, or if this is part of the ancient British Christianity. Oop, go away with the adverts. All right, just picked a random picture and I get this rubbish. Okay. What they would do then, the ceremony that they would run, they would light fires on certain days. And you can read slightly cryptic references to what was going on with Patrick. So what he would do on the sacred days, he would go up there and set fires at the entrances to their, because you go round and round the serpent part, and you go into like an inner sanctum, like a cave or a hole, or that's where they're, and he put the fires there so they couldn't get in. He's also desecrating their sites and making it useless for their worship. And he broke that religion and replaced it with the Roman Church. That's what Patrick did. That's why he's venerated. So the whole snakes thing could tie in with that, and it's double interesting because you have the same sort of snake mounds in America, and there are examples still in Britain and in Ireland where you can still see these things. And what's also interesting, which will be up in the next video, is what Wilson Blackett showed then, is how many of the ancient stories, mostly in England, funny enough, revolve around so-called saints or local lords even. Some are quite recent, some are medieval times, a few hundred years ago, killing the local dragon. And now this is actually a reference to destroying the ancient worship and the sort of snake mounds. Like I said, I am going to do a big thing on Conan the Barbarian soon, which, bizarrely as it may sound, is also all tied in with ancient British history and the religion. So there we are. Enjoy your day. and enjoy your pint of Guinness. Oh, which I'm also going to get that video up, which will be on the other channel you see linked, which is Welsh History Stories, where Guinness actually got his recipe from. It ain't Ireland. And the name's interesting as well. So I'll look for that one on the other channel. Please subscribe to that one as well. And don't forget, hit the notifications. Lots more videos coming up. Till the next time, Heddwch.
Well, Victor Haughton is, of course, Baron Blackett, and his book is on sale via Cymroglyphics website. So everyone is welcome to contribute a video for this evening, and in fact we are asking for new work very urgently, as always. Angela or myself will act as liaison to publish them to the Britain's Hidden History YouTube channel. Just message us by finding us on the BHH Facebook group page under members. If you've got video or PowerPoint images in your video, we'll hopefully include it on the Sunday show. And don't forget that you can have a lot of videos to comprise one show. So Bob Morgan is one such contributor, and we have a few news items lined up to play, already recorded. And here's one with Bob about the Harpole Hoard. Hello. Well, today I'm speaking with Bob Morgan, one of the founding members of Britain's Hidden History. And Bob is a professional surveyor by his work and has visited countless of the sites with his surveyor's hat on and his critical eye to produce all kinds of reports. So welcome, Bob.
Welcome. The point I got to make is I'm now a retired surveyor, so I've got plenty of time to get out there and do site visits. This was another one of these hoards found in Northamptonshire, and it's a burial site where they were beginning construction of houses, and they come across this burial, and they've done excavations, obviously, to see what it is. The key thing about this is the date. The burial is sort of taken place between 630 to 670. That should be, I missed out the date, of the Christian year AD, basically.
Yeah.
And that date to me was quite crucial, because if we see what they found in the hoard. So what they found was this 30-piece necklace with various bits. It's got coins on it. It's got various stones, garnets. But the bit that really struck me as soon as I saw this in the newspapers was this bottom one here, where you can see the cursor.
Yeah.
With that kind of work there. And the reason that struck me is it's very similar to work that's been found in the Sutton Hoo burial.
Yeah.
And Ross and I did a big hour-long program on that, and it will be in there that there are several pieces that look very similar to that, to that cloisant work down below there. And the interesting thing, of course, on the Sutton Hoo burial is that they're also dating that to around about they're trying to get that dated around about the 625 AD.
Yeah.
So that the Sutton Hoo boat can be King Radwell's burial boat. And it's interesting to me that they've actually now come out with a similar date. They dated this around about 630. So it's a similar work of a similar date.
Yeah. And the Saxons wouldn't have been Christians at that point, would they?
Well, that's the interesting thing. That's why they want King Radwell in the boat at Sutton Hoo. Because he's known that he was a pagan who converted to Christianity.
Oh, right. So that's why they pick him up.
And that to them then explains why there are all these Christian items in the burial goods at Sutton Hoo. You've got the bowls with crosses on them, etc., etc. There's a whole lot of the two baptismal spoons with Paul's name on them. To them that explains why it's Radwell. That is their justification, because he was a pagan king. He converted to Christianity, and he reverted.
Right.
They think he reverted, but he was obviously given a somewhere between a Christian and a pagan burial, if you like, and that ties it up very neatly. The thing that Ross and I object to about it is that they seem to have fudged the dating at Sutton Hoo. I actually believe it's later than 625, so it can't be Radwell. And Ross was of the opinion it was earlier, possibly another 150 years earlier, to make it just a Britain boat rather than a Saxon boat.
Why did you think it was later then?
I thought it was later because again they found coins in there, and the gold content of the coins is more consistent with the later coins, which got adulterated as they went down through the ages. I actually think that once you've got a later date, you get King Radwell there for the picture, and then it could be there could be a whole different range of explanations. I don't necessarily believe that the person in the Sutton Hoo boat came from East Anglia. It could be it could be someone who was visiting, who was a dignitary and died and got buried there in East Anglia, but not in their home country.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons why at the end of the day. I mean, one of the big things with Sutton Hoo is there's never been any conclusive proof that there ever was a body in the boat.
Right.
And again, from day one, the very first, as soon as they discovered the boat, Brown, who was doing the excavation work, thought he discovered a Viking boat. But the very first press release out was, "We've discovered the burial of King Radwell." And right from day one, before they even knew what they had, before they knew they had a body, before they knew anything, they'd already put King Radwell into the boat, and he's never come out of it.
Yeah.
And I'm convinced that whoever in that boat is not King Radwell. Anyway, this is one of the reasons why I picked up on this, because the work there on this item down here is very similar in style to what came out of Sutton Hoo, and therefore has a very similar date. And on this one, they're putting the date into 630, 670, which would be after King Radwell, which would tend to support my conclusions on
being later. Yeah. I went to a metal detectorist meeting on Tuesday, only because I got a friend, and Margaret bought me a metal detector. And I went to the meeting to find out where I could use it, and she pretty much can't.
Yes, no, it's
because you can't use it on any scheduled monument site. But you can use it up to the borders of the monument site, apparently. But anyway, I detract, because every meeting they hold, they display the artifacts found since the last meeting, and they're only once a month. And one of the people had dug up a medieval item with that pattern on it, but twice the size of that. When I say twice the size, I mean that's one cross. There was a second set of box of cross with a cross in that design, so it's like a big rectangle, as opposed to a square. So it seemed, they said it was a common pattern, and they could date the pattern in various ways, because the pattern was seen elsewhere.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying, and that's why I think that they're actually fudging the date of Sutton Hoo, because I'm convinced in my own mind that it's later, around about the 640, 650, 660, at least, if perhaps not even a little bit later. But they've definitely got to get it to 625, which is when we know King Radwell died, if he's going to be put into the boat. And to do that, they actually, we believe, have fudged the dating of the coins, which are what they're using to say that it was King Radwell. Initially, when they dated the coins, they were putting them into this period of 640, 650. So he couldn't possibly be in it. But when they reevaluated the coins, surprise, surprise, they've come up with an expert who said, oh, they were about 620, 624, you know, just putting him into the picture. And I think it's the
get him
fudge
in there. Yeah,
I think it's the fudge in order to get him in there. I don't believe he was ever in that boat. So yeah, that's the reason why I picked up on it. It is very similar certainly in style to what was in Sutton Hoo.
but those coins there are incredibly well preserved, aren't they?
Yeah.
Look at that. Because the coins that they showed me in the metal detectorist meeting, the Roman one in particular, was a big lump of heavy metal, and there's hardly any face on it. But look at the quality of that.
No, I mean, so that's why they should be able to get a fairly precise dating on that. So yeah, that's why I picked up on this one and would have discussed it with Ross. They also got pots and the skeletons, etc., etc. So yeah, interesting one. And then you've got this little face image, which again, you know, on Sutton Hoo, you've got the face images on the actual. I think it's the scepter, isn't it? They've got a scepter with little faces on each side of it. Again, very similar in style to this.
How big are those? Are they actual face size, like a mask?
No, they're small. These are just sort of small, you know,
ornaments type thing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bob. Oh, it might not come on. Thank you, Bob. A very interesting news item, and there was a lot of chat about Venner, Kvenna, and other similar sounding names in the chat. As I said last week, some of the news Bob has found may not be right up to date, but are nevertheless still newsworthy. And I've mentioned already today that some live shows will be made up of a number of short videos. In fact, the Britain's Hidden History YouTube channel contains more than 250 videos of varying lengths and on a wide variety of subjects, and they're often grouped together in playlists. There's so much to watch that becoming a Patreon remains excellent value, and of course, you're supporting a wonderful cause. Going through those videos, one of them grabbed my attention during the week, and it's about Marchell Abrahams speaking with Ross about biblical place names across the UK, not just in Wales, right across the UK. When I played the video, I noticed that there was a frozen segment within it. So in this version I'm about to play, I've edited the segment out. So you see if you can spot where the join is.
Leaves on the same tree, like inch and ounce, are ultimately the same word, meaning a 12th part. Let's leave it at that and go back. What I've tried to do is to go deep down and find out how we got to the word in the first place.
Hello and welcome back to Britain's Hidden History. I'm Ross, and I've got an interview with the wonderful Marchell Abrahams, author, historian and studying expert on how old words work and where place names, things like that, come from. And what you find in Britain, there is this vast connection between British names, particularly of rivers and places, although surnames as well, and old biblical names and names in the Middle East. So how on earth did that come about? Well, let's look into some of those names and try and get some ideas of what went in what direction and how far back does it go. All right, so over to Marchell.
Well, it started like so much else does with Wilson and Blackett and the cross that they placed at Nevern, that was placed at Nevern by Helena for safekeeping. And I was very intrigued by all the biblical place names, Jericho and Constantine, and there are others. And I started wondering whether that was just a thing associated with the placing of the cross at Nevern, or whether there were other biblical place names. So I got to work with an atlas, just an ordinary road map, not that one, but an older one. I find the older the map, the more interesting names there are on it. It's like dictionaries.
Isn't it worrying how names can disappear?
It's frightening. Yes, they've even taken churches off Ordnance Survey maps, I gather. I haven't seen that for myself, but I believe that's true. Anyway, yes, so I started looking through, and I began to write down biblical place names in Britain. It is absolutely staggering. Would you like me just to find a few
examples? Yes.
Abram, Albraham. Well, we know about those from the other video, but Bethania, Bethlehem, Britannia, Carmel, Chesil Beach. Chesil is Hebrew for fat.
Oh, really?
Which I found in a concordance.
What, sort of fat of the lamb or something like that?
That sort of thing, yes. Not
right, big tummies.
bon point, but yes, richness. It's like grâce in French, I believe. And Constantine, yes. But then we've got amazing ones like Egypt and Palestine. We've got Gethsemane, Stoke Gabriel, Hebron, Top of Hebers, which is an astonishing name to find. It's like the English surname Heber Percy, which is so Hebrew and redolent of biblical whatnot. Homer, which I know isn't biblical, but it's a Cymric name. Jacobstow, Jericho, 3 Joppers, for goodness sake.
So how does Joppa tie in?
Well, if you look up the coast of Palestine, there is what they nowadays call Jaffa, but Jaffa's biblical name was Joppa.
Oh, okay.
And there are 3 Joppas in Britain. There's one in Edinburgh at Portobello, and then I think there's one in Cornwall. I can't remember where the other one is. And we've got 2 River Jordans.
Yes.
We've got any number of Meons, M-E-O-N, down in Hampshire. There's a River Meon.
So do you have to know where the Jordan rivers are?
One is the Brit catchment and the other is the Torridge catchment. That's both down in the southwest. There's a really good thing that you can find. It's if you just Google or Start Page or DuckDuckGo, preferably. Don't Google anything. Start Page it or DuckDuckGo it. Rivers of the British Isles. You get rivers in England, rivers of Scotland, rivers of Ireland, rivers of Wales. And it gives you every single minute little stream with their names, the direction they're flowing in, which catchment they're in, alternative names. It's a gold mine, and river and place names are such clues, astonishingly old names. I mean, Mimran, for example, the river Mimran, I think it's Mimran, or is it Mimram, in Hertfordshire. Well, Mimrin is Welsh for particle, bit or mite.
Right.
I haven't got to the bottom of that one yet because there's so many.
Do you think there's a connection there with something?
There might well be a connection. It might well be a British name. Don't tell me Mimram, River Mimram is a Saxon name because I won't believe it. Not if it was given to me on a plate, I wouldn't believe it. Just to carry on, we've got Nazareth, we've got 4 Nebos.
So how does Nebo... what's that then?
Nebo is again, it's a biblical name. I don't know my Bible obviously, as well as I should.
So I wasn't trying to put you on the spot. I just wondered how that.
But please, just you could go look up a Bible.
Look up
Nebo, and it'll tell you exactly what Nebo is. I think it's a mount. Nebo, yes. And there are 4 of them in the British Isles.
Wow.
Padden Aram, for heaven's sake. What are we doing with a village called Padden Aram in Angus? And it's not a big village, it's not a particularly interesting village. It just happens to be called Padden Aram, and it's close to Glamis, where the Meagle Stone is, and the grave of Guinevere.
Yes.
And there's a place called Arthurstone, and there was an old railway station there before Mr. Beeching had his way, called Jordanston. I think it's called Jordanston. It's all in the same area. And furthermore...
Not where Prince Charles went, was it? Gordonston? Not that.
Oh, no, this is Jordanston.
Oh, Jordan.
Yes,
right.
Jordanston, as in River Jordan.
Yeah, okay.
But this is an old railway station. Doesn't exist anymore, but I found it on a map of 1923, and it's called Jordanston. and it's really close to Padden Aram. And furthermore, Padden Aram is very close to the line of the Fossway, as given by the ancient historians like Henry of Huntingdon and Robert of Gloucester, who say unequivocally that the Fossway went from Totnes up to Caithness.
Yeah, amazing.
And I spent another long time tracing out the path of the river of the Fossway, and you can call this. I call this proof at this level. I think this is real proof. But on the Fossway, the line of the Fossway through Angus near Padden Aram, again on this 1923 map was a tiny little hamlet. It was 4 villages and a church or something. And guess what its name was? Fossoway. Fossoway. I mean, what are we supposed to take from that?
Yes,
I mean, I have to call it proof.
Where do they get these names from, isn't it?
Well, exactly. But we have Pisgah.
So is there, but you're saying some of these names are disappearing off modern maps, you think, then?
If you start page Fossoway, you'll find it as a farm, but it's not. I don't think it's on this map. I haven't checked on this map, but the older the maps, the better. The more brilliant things you'll find.
Because the other problem I'm finding, and just from my looking what's happening around here, is all the new. What do you call them? Estates. They're not villages. There's no shops or centres.
No, I know, it's frightening.
Just like dormitories, isn't it? Where you just put a load of houses with nothing there.
And look at the renaming of Tiger Bay, for example, in Cardiff.
Yes.
When the time comes, the name of Tiger Bay is actually incredibly important because there's one in. I'm so sorry, I interrupted you. I suddenly thought Tiger Bay, Cardiff. There's a Tiger Bay in London as well, but we'll come on to that in another video because that's a story in itself.
Yes, well, you've mentioned before that. Well, to me anyway, that it's significant, the name Tiger, isn't it?
It's very my heavens, it is. Well, for example, we've got 3 Salomes in the south of England. We've got Berwick Salome, Britwell Salome, Radford Salome, Samson, Sardis. There's even a Sardis. Where the coins were, and when we get to the
Pontypridd rugby ground is called Sardis Road, just out of interest.
Is it? Gosh, no, that I didn't know.
I think that's a more recent thing, though. But still,
there are 3 Sukkoths, and anybody Jewish or who knows anything about the Jewish religion watching this will understand that Sukkoth means booths, and we have the festival of booths, which is our Michaelmas, end of September. There are 3 Sukkoths in Scotland alone, and a Sukkoth Moor. And Moor is obviously the Gaelic MHOR, meaning greater. So we have wrong direction. Academics have gone as far as they can in the wrong direction. They are now really arguing the difference between 2 leaves on the same tree. And that's silly because you can't go any further than that. They're leaves on the same tree, like inch and ounce are ultimately the same word, meaning a 12th part. Let's leave it at that and go back. What I've tried to do is to go deep down and find out how we got to the word in the first place, and that's another story.
Well, that's more interesting then, isn't it? Yes.
Well, it is, I think, yes, it's much more interesting than arguing about 2 leaves on the same tree. Now I forgot.
I think, sorry to jump in, but I noticed with some of the discussions I've had, similar thing with Old Welsh and that, the academic version seems incredibly complicated and impenetrable, and all this talk about Old Welsh and Middle Welsh and a lot of the words just sail through all that.
They do. The spellings might change a bit, but the spelling isn't as important as the root of the word and the pronunciation of it, I've found. Oh yes,
that's the point.
These invaders, you take your root word, the root word often survives, and the invaders just stick an ending on it, their own ending. They'll ask the indigenous, whoever it happens to be, Lloydgrooms, what's this? And for example, how does Avon come to be the name of a river when it actually means river, Avon? I mean, they would have asked, I can just envisage it, what is this, say the invading Saxons or the arriving Saxons? and the indigenous native British saying, "What idiots! They don't even know what a river is. It's a river. It's an Avon. Forgive my lack of Welsh.
No, that's fine.
It's called the River Avon. Say that, and there you are. You've got a new thing springing out of a new name, a new word, even springing out of total misunderstanding and lack of comprehension. Fascinating. This is how dialects grow up over the years.
There was a wonderful example of that when I was at college at the LSE. We had a cafe in the building, which is a privately run thing, just happened to be there as a neighbour, as it were. And it was called Wright's Bar.
Oh, yes.
And it was great because there were Italian immigrants that come over in, 60s or 70s.
Yes.
Not a word of English.
Yes.
I got to know them really well. They were fantastic. And the sign writer came up and said, "What do you want?"
Yes.
And he couldn't understand a word. They didn't speak any English at all.
Yes.
And they said, "Well, this will be all right." And they just went, "Yeah, right." And that was it. It became Wright's Bar. They were Italians, nothing to do with them. They didn't know what it said.
Gosh.
And it's Wright's Bar still to this day, as far as I know. It was a few years ago, and I went to check.
Well, that's fascinating because if you, I don't really like extrapolating because it leads to all sorts of misunderstandings, but if you take what you've just said as an example, that underpins most of dialects, most different languages grow from just such misunderstandings and mishearings.
Right.
Language doesn't seem to me to be at all a scientific thing. It's a series of accidents. Can you pronounce what somebody else is telling you? No. So I have a stab at it, and that over time becomes a different name for the same thing.
Yes,
so what I've tried to do is to go down, deep down, to find the original. Yes, the original source, I suppose. But when I find things like take Wisk, the River Wisk in English, River Axe, although it doesn't sound the same. There's a lot of what linguists call metathesis about it, in which mainly consonants. I think vowels are too fluid to do this, but consonants change places, like Frith and Firth, which I think we talked about, didn't we? So the River Wisk, which is in English, it's actually the same word as ask, or even X. Axe, I mean, I'm getting metaphysizing all over the place now. And it's the same word as esk in Scots, or the Welsh ask, and uisce, the Gaelic uisce, which whisk, I mean U-I-S-G-E, is almost the same spelling as W-I-S-K-E.
And they're all names of rivers as well?
They're all water. It's all actually water.
Oh, I see.
So
the River Usk is kind of...
It's River. It's the same misunderstanding as River Avon. Yes, right, exactly. Okay, yes. So there we are. But what else can I find?
Fantastic.
Oh, Zion Hill.
Yes, there's a few of those around.
There, Gabriel's half moon. That is so Syrian. Jessup, now the English surname Jessup, that is, as far as I can understand, that is directly, it's the same name as Teshub, who was he was either the Hurrian or Hittite god of thunder, as in the English Daranwi, which is the same word as the Welsh Taran, meaning thunder. They called him Teshub, and it suddenly thought, where have I heard that name before? Of course, the English surname Jessup. It's the same.
People, right?
And now that is my own. That I've arrived at that myself, but there is a precedent for this sort of thing happening, and that is this English surname Perkin, which is, and this has been established, please don't ask me by whom, when or where, but you can go and look it up, because I wouldn't have known it if I hadn't found it for myself. It is established that Perkin is the same name as the Baltic thunder god name, which is Perkunas.
Wow.
Perkunas, and variants thereof. So with that in mind, I've decided that Jessup is Teshub, because that sounds a bit high-handed, but there is, as I say, there is a precedent for it. And you did ask me, how do we know that some of these names were not added in a religious Christian sort of Oxford movement, fanaticism
Well, or just later. I know around here, like the Sardis, I assume, I don't know, but the Sardis in Pontypridd, because there's a Sardis church, and then they became Sardis Road, and
yes,
it seems to be an Industrial Revolution more recent thing.
Very likely, and I wouldn't argue with that for a second. There must be many of these places that are, as a consequence of the Christian movement, Christianity generally, and also various religious revivals over the years, like the Oxford movement or the Methodist movement, that sort of thing. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think they were trying to. Henry Mayhew turned up in his amazing work. Was it The Poor of London? He turned up an amazing lack of awareness of basic Christianity. Some people didn't. Some people in the slums of London didn't even know who Jesus was. Never even heard the name. Wow. And it seems to me that some of these movements in Victorian times stemmed from an awareness that people basically needed educating as to who these prophets and so forth were. Hence the church building programme and so forth. So yes, undoubtedly some of these names will be as a consequence of trying to bring back an awareness of Christianity to people. Equally, there are names that are much, much too old and have changed their meaning slightly or their spelling slightly, much too old to come into that category. What we need people to do is find out, if possible, so we can discard them. I don't say they're not of interest. They are, of course, of interest, but they're of less interest than what we're trying to do at the moment, which is to get right deep down. Yes. So it would be fascinating if some people could take this list, which I'd gladly let you have, for people to look at, and see if they can find out for themselves what we can discard, such as. It isn't a biblical name, but Saltaire, for example, which was completely made up by the chap who invented Sunlight Soap. And he was an amazing philanthropist, and he built this wonderful place. I think
is he a Quaker or something, wasn't he?
Yes, I think he was. Yeah. And the houses were spacious, the air was healthy. He wanted his workers to thrive and flourish, and it was built, and it was called Saltaire. So if you try and, I don't know why he called it Saltaire. No, maybe because the air was salty. As simple as that. That sort of thing, though interesting, is not to our purpose. Ancient enough to interest us, exactly. So if we could.
That's why rivers are so good, isn't it?
This is why rivers are. Oh gosh, go and look at the place names, the river names. They are absolutely amazing. Take Hitchin in Hertfordshire. Hitchin has a river coming through it called Hiz, quite simply Hiz, H-I-Z. And they think from Hiz to Hitchin, the Z must have been pronounced more or less as the Italians pronounce it, a sort of hits or a hitch.
Right.
Again, I am not an orthodox linguist. There will be somebody out there who can show us exactly how we get from Hiz, H-I-Z, to Hitchin, H-I-T-C-H-E-N. I can't tell you.
It sounds pretty close, doesn't it?
It sounds pretty close, yes, but they will be able to show you. There's the thing called the vowel shift. Now, I only know that the great vowel shift of the Middle Ages exists. I cannot begin to tell you what changed from which or why alphabets, for example, the Aleph, which lay on its side if you were a Phoenician, how did that suddenly become upright? I don't know. So there are people out there who can tell us this sort of thing. Mm-hmm. I think there is one chance of proof, and I use that word, these biblical names, and that is if we look at the alphabet trail. Wilson and Blackett went into the alphabet trail, didn't they? From Coelbren onwards, the Reish, the Etruscan,
stuff,
the Hebrew, the whole lot, Phoenician. It all leads back to Coelbren. It goes out, it comes back. I think these biblical place names did the same thing. And maybe Cummins Beaumont will help us with that, but that's a whole other story.
Yes, we'll get on to him next time. Thank you very much indeed.
Oh, my pleasure.
Absolutely wonderful as always.
Well, talking about River Avon being river, it's like the first people who went to Australia, isn't it? They bumped into an Aborigine and they saw this creature that was jumping around, 2 big legs and a long tail, and they said, "What's that?" And the Aborigine said, "I can't understand you, mate." And that's how come kangaroo, which means "I can't understand you," has become the name of an animal in Australia. Very interesting. So I know we'd all like to thank Marchell for her work. Thank you, Marchell. Listening to your presentations is always a pleasure, and don't forget, Marchell's new book will hopefully be published in the very near future. And don't forget also that you can check out Marchell's own YouTube channel for more of her own and her collaboration videos. There's a very interesting one that's been recently added. Well, after last week's live show, I was sent a new edit of a video with Ross talking about Caermead, which is the palace of the British kings. It must have been an awesome sight, and the main building at least appears to have been faced with white marble. I thought I read in an early Wilson and Blackett book that this was a possible contender for Camelot, hence my picture of the Camelot theme park in the advert for this show. But as that name was derived from Caermelin, Yellow Fortress, and the marble here was white, I doubt that it was Camelot. And in fact, 2 other sites appear to be a better fit, as stated by Alan Wilson. So let's take a look at this new edit.
Not many people seem to be aware that there is a major British palace in South Wales that was built in the 2nd century during the so-called Roman era. The Welsh triads tell us that this was built by King Owen, who was a Silures king from that area. You can still see Ystrad Owen just up the road, which was the town named after him, and you can see his burial mound, obviously labelled as Mott and Bailey Castle, but there it is, Ystrad Owen, right next to the church. There's the burial mound. Hello, I'm Ross from Britain's Hidden History, and we're out today. Before I tell you where we are, I'm going to show you that the old traditions of burying the Welsh kings, where in the early days you would build a mound, and then this would be next to a church, and quite often the church would be dedicated to the person who paid for and founded the church. So in this situation, we're in a town called Ystrad Owain, which is the clue, Owain. The church is called St. Owain. And sure enough, we've got the church there, and right next to it is the mound. So you can see here, it's absolutely fantastic burial mound. I'm just going to read something from Archaeologists Rex Discovered to give you an idea about it. So, the search for the British kings does throw up a few problems, but it also presents a great number of opportunities. There is at Llantwit Major a buried villa, which I'm going to go and visit, not today, but we'll see that soon, said in Welsh tradition to have been built for King Owen. This is Owen again, so it's Owen ap Cyllyn ap Caradog ap Bran, and he ruled about 120 to 150 AD. The strange thing with this palace, I mean, it's a substantial find. The total site covers, check, over 8 acres. The living quarters occupied 2 acres with 20 rooms. One room was 60 feet by 51 feet, with the remaining walls rising to 9 feet high. The walls are plastered and covered with remains of beautiful paintwork. And there are also human remains found there, along with remains of horses, which shows there was some kind of raid on the place, which also fits the historic records. Now, the strange thing is, this was discovered in the 1880s. And as you'll see in the video, pictures were taken, excavation work was done. But strangely, everything stopped. And we can't help wonder, why is it that not that many miles away, millions and millions are spent on providing the wonderful visitor attraction at Caerleon, which celebrates the Roman rulers or invaders, and also the sort of English castle, if you like, in Caerphilly has got millions spent on it, and yet the money is not available to even do proper archaeology on this truly British and Welsh site. Why we have no interest or pride in our own stuff and seem obsessed with making everything foreign. I'm Ross from Britain's Hidden History, and I'm out and about on a site visit with friends again, and this time we're going to the Palace of Caermead, built to the British kings in the Roman style. Not Roman. It was excavated, or they started to, and when excavations started to confirm it wasn't Roman, guess what? Excavations stopped, site filled in, and now all you're left with is this rather unimpressive looking field with a palace in the background. Yeah, so when the excavation started, there's a lot of excitement about what they discovered. Here was the palace. The problem was, it had to be Roman. The British records say it was built by a British king in the Roman style. So everything was proceeding along quite happily. So they get to the floor, the mosaics, this kind of thing, and they start realising, hey, this isn't Roman, it doesn't fit, the images are wrong, the scenes are wrong, and then, sure enough, the whole dig got shut down, and that was it. So somehow it was a massive visitor centre, and a lot of fuss played about this amazing British palace, and isn't it great to see the archaeology and the mosaics, and you can see the designs supposedly traced him back to Middle Eastern origins, which gives support for the migrations. What a wonderful site this should be. So instead nothing, it's just a field, which you do well to find even. And so let's go and have a look. Alright, so don't touch any crops, be a good visitor. I think it's growing spinach or something. Yeah, so well done Tim for tracking this down. And that elevated section there is what we're looking for. Yeah, so come on archaeologists, no one's allowed to fly or travel anywhere. We've got universities in this country, must be one of the things to do. Well, how about this? There's a palace. And we know it's there. The archaeology's already been partially done. Yeah, Tim.
I don't know.
We're looking for this white marble, aren't we?
Do you reckon that's what happens to marble after
I have no idea.
years of...
I have no idea. This could be a war anyway, couldn't it? It's one of those things you have to get tested, wouldn't you, in the lab? You're trying to establish some sort of war here, do you think, or...? Tricky to tell, isn't it? That's why you do archaeology digs.
What do you think of the position?
Yeah, Tim, just saying, what do I think of the position of it as a palace? I mean, I don't know. I mean, you got is that the coast over here, Tim? Yeah, which part of the coast is that?
That's down to Nash Point.
Back down to Nash Point where we just were. Yeah.
Atlantic Major.
I mean,
A fairly commanding position in, you know, the southern plain area. You've got a good view all the way out to St Hilary. You can see the high ground just over there, which is probably going to be towards the Garth and towards Caerphilly, and your views to the right. I mean, good commanding views all the way down towards Wick and Dunraven, especially if that tree cover was a little less dense. And you really are in the centre of a very level plain with good
Vale has always been associated with wealth and stuff, hasn't it?
Yeah.
If you want to do farming, I mean, this is the area you do it, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's all the big houses around here, the wealth of the country, really. And the bottom line is, it matches where the ancient description says it is. That's the frustrating thing, isn't it?
It is.
It's where it's supposed to be, and it's got the building it's supposed to have, in the style it's supposed to be. It's built in the Roman style by a British king. Because it is the very famous one in the southeast of England, isn't it? That's the same deal there. You know, there's a Roman style.
What was that?
The southeast of England. The Roman style fortress, but everyone's quite happy that it's not Roman. It's just in that style. It was part of their winning over the locals, trying to pacify them in Wales, I would say is more like it. Alright, so this is the site of the palace. As you can see, it's quite extensive, and I just noticed that below me there's some work stones there. These are definitely worked, Tim. There's some there. Can you see any signs of the actual dig itself?
I don't know where.
So I think they filled it all back in, didn't they? So it'd be great to come up here with some ground scanning devices and have a look. And I think we'll have to come back in the winter when all this has died back. And this, you can see more, you don't get stung and shredded. And there's the sea, and not that far away, you see. Pretty close to the coast. So if you're a wealthy king, this would be a nice spot for your palace. Yeah, the ancient Welsh triads talking about this site and King Owen building the palace were translated into English in 1794. And this is well known about. It's not just come from nowhere. And the first diggers mentioned were by Story in 1888. And it's a bit of a tragic addition to, I'll just read from Story's notes of 1888. It was also known that houses with carved stones had been found there, Caermead, for one man still living, whose father had been employed by Humphrey Dembry, who was a tenant of the Lord Bute. This Humphrey Dembry has a lime kiln near the spot where the house of Daniel Davis, JP, has been built, and for a period of over 20 years he burned limestone from the old walls, giving his reason that the stones were all ready for burning, having no shale or mother attached, and so saving the labour of cleaning them, which had to be done when stones were quarried from the natural bed had to be used. So we've got clear evidence there that it was a lime, beautiful palace, and the walls were still there. This man can distinctly recollect his father telling how Mr. Dembry preferred to carve stones for burning into lime, and that he hauled great quantities of carved stone to the kiln. Dembry died in 1795, and you can see his gravestone near the door of the church in Llanelli or Llantyp Major. So it's a tragedy all in all, but it's not too late. The site's still there. Some sort of virtual reality can be done. It should be excavated, it should be shown off. The problem is, being 2nd century, this falls right into the period when there were supposed to be no independent Welsh kings, and the whole area was overrun by Romans. And this could be the reason why. it will never be shown, and this site will never be displayed or get the funding or attention that places like the Roman Caerleon do.
Well, Marchell says I'm in danger of becoming professional at this. I don't think so. A couple of people have pointed out how emotional it is seeing Ross, but his work is just profound, isn't it? And thank you very much there to Paul Hartle for that edit, with the addition of music and the credits, etc. It was put together very nicely. Thank you, Paul. I'm surprised that the powers that be didn't run the railway line right through Caermead. That's par for the course, isn't it, unfortunately? And the whole situation summed up beautifully there at the end by Ross. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Tim and Ross there made some great points in that video. Well done both. So now we have another interesting video to watch from the YouTube channel. It's just a golden calf that just keeps giving. There is so much on that channel to dip into. So this video features Alan Wilson, or should I say Sergeant Bilko. And Ross may have discovered Alan's first printed material, or at least his first editorials.
So right, so you had a spell in the army, and that was over in Horna, I think, wasn't it?
I spent most time in Horna in Germany, yeah. And I was damn nuisance. They transferred me from place to place again. So I finished up in Horna, and they had a garrison sort of setup for education, as it were. And the boss for me was Captain Halcrow.
Right.
Lovely fella, but he wouldn't be in charge of 2 sheep, Hell of a good man to work for, because he left you get on with it.
He had the sense to know he wasn't that great.
He knew he wasn't.
That's worth a lot.
And he was very, if anything went wrong, he would take the rap. He had good points.
Right.
So we were ordered by the Colonel to produce a Garrison magazine. Minimum, I think it was 30 pages, which meant 15 pages of size or something.
Yeah.
And a minimum distribution of, I think, of 1,200 or something like that, There was a huge barracks.
Right.
It was all over 30,000 men, built by the Germans. It was one of their main places. Well, then we took it over there when we defeated the Germans. And these German barracks, they made British barracks look like pigsties, They were really bloody high-class workmanship of the floors and ceilings and everything.
Okay.
The whole hotel.
None of this jerry-built thing, no?
Oh, nothing like the British Army, save every penny. So we had to produce a Garrison magazine. So I immediately went on to saw all these sergeant majors who were in charge of stores and everything else. And,
you got to get paper?
Yeah, because I had to scour paper. So I needed at least 1,200 sheets of paper a week minimum, and that wouldn't do it, And they were all a bit sympathetic. They said, and the trucks used to arrive at the back of our building loaded with paper that they'd requisitioned or hadn't used, and I was to bring it in. I had a spare room to pile this paper up, and they provided me with a sort of ramshackle old press thing. And I had never done anything like this in my life.
Brilliant.
But Halcrow was in charge, and he was I gotta admit, he should never have been a second lieutenant. He was a captain, but he was a public school boy.
Right.
But he was a damn good bloke. You couldn't dislike him, put it that way. And if things went wrong, he'd stand up.
Yeah, that's worth a lot, isn't it?
It was worth a lot, of course it was. So he had a chat with me. How are we going to do this? Have you a few ideas? I said, yeah, we hired a German secretary and straight away, a little typist. We wanted somebody who could type fast, you see.
Yeah.
We got somebody to loan us that guy as well. One of the regiments wanted to get rid of some nuisance, so we needed a hand, as it were. And we set about doing the magazine. And the colonel, apparently, it was a full colonel in charge. Lieutenant colonels in charge of regiments.
Okay.
The next rank up is full colonel.
Full colonel, yes.
Who is a big wheel to these next to brigadier. He called me over one day. Yeah, how are you going to do this magazine? I said, well, we think we can get the paper in and we can get yes. But I want everybody to know that it's their magazine. I said, you mean take papers and things from various regiments? He said, yes. He said, get them involved. So I then put notices up with their permission and their CEO in all the regiments, all the units. Anybody want to write anything,
stories, whatever, right?
Stories, anything you want to joke. Of course, we got some false stuff in. It's interesting,
Was something not printable there, was it?
Yeah, and we had to get heavy board, you see, because you can produce a magazine of paper, then you need more of a board, you know what I mean?
Yes, I've done that kind of layout.
For the cover.
Oh, I see, okay, for the cover you mean, right, okay, yes.
And so we...
Oh, right, so you had a proper cover and everything.
Yeah, right. And then I had this printing press, they'd give me this from office, printing press, and I had a typist to type everything up for me, little German girl. And we were in business,
Excellent.
And Hal Crow used to sort of bite his nails. And, how are we going to do this? I said, leave it to me. I was good at said, go and play golf, But he said, I want you to arrange things and submit them to me as editor. You're going to sit there. That's all right with me. Yeah. And that's how it was.
Make sure he passes his desk.
So I went round every unit, every mess, into the sergeant's messes, talking to them. Got permission to put up notices that we accepted articles and poems, anything or items of interest. It would be accepted. And
contact Sergeant Wilson.
It may not come out the first week. They will be, processed. And it went well.
Brilliant.
And before we knew it, we were doing several thousand copies of the magazine per week.
Fantastic. I mean, you just hand printing them then? You had this little
we had
printing.
a German typist and a little printer.
So that's the Wilson and Blackett books were born.
Aye.
Courtesy of the British military, yeah?
Aye. So, of course, you're not supposed to do that. There's no requisition in army regulations that allows you to do that. So everything I was doing was illegal or unofficial to say the least.
Unofficial, yes, say that.
It was unofficial to say the best. And I was given the title of something, they're in charge of something that I never went to.
So you can't remember the title. I mean, liaisons officer or something like that.
So it was attached to head office, because there was a garrison. See, when you get regiments coming in, spending a month or two on the firing ranges, and then going out again, another regiment comes in, you've got a constant interchange, and they always leave gear behind. They always do. And so you have to have a head office to run the barracks.
Right, yeah.
Arrange the movements in and out of the units.
And so you're doing logistics straight away then, yeah?
So I was doing straight away. So anybody moving out, I was straight over there grabbing all the... because we managed to... One of them left a little truck behind.
You left the whole truck behind?
Aye.
I told my son off for forgetting his coat. They've left the whole truck behind, yeah.
Aye, so I think they were coming back to Britain. See, I think they'd actually for me. So I know I had a truck, and I take the plates off the unit off the back.
Right.
And I used to go around and see various sergeant majors. The sergeant majors run the army.
Yes, I've been told that.
Don't run the army. And I'd go around and see the regimental sergeant major, or even the company sergeant major. Hey, I need some juice and petrol. I take it on the back out, and you always get filled up with petrol.
Like Bilko, this, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I was Bilko. You can imagine Bilko, I mean. I had a scrounge paper.
Yeah, you produced a
magazine. I had a little German typist.
A truck to drive it round.
I had a little German typist who was officially not working for me, but working else in Garrison head of office, but she was working for me. And, you know, and she was a good typist. Good
Yeah.
And, you know.
And you had a truck to deliver the papers.
And they even gave me a Lance Corporal to assist me. And he was one of these that they couldn't control. It was a pain in the ass, so they've always wanted rid of him, you know. But he was good when they let him loose to do things he wanted to do and give him a free. He was good as gold. He didn't want to take orders, really.
Yeah.
So he'd say, "Hey, how about doing this for me? Hey, can you?" And he'd go off and do it.
Give him a bit of responsibility. Yeah.
He wanted to do things. So before you knew it, the first magazine came out. You know, I think we did 2,000 copies.
Brilliant.
And it was about 30 pages. That was all we have. And before you knew it, it was really popular because soldiers used to send in jokes. A lot of them were mute.
I was thinking about that. How much of it is actually
But they
usable?
could send in articles if they wanted, or experience stories, and then we print them.
You just had to edit it together. That's what you had to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Superb.
I also wrote an editorial,
Right.
which Alcro signed.
Of course.
He signed it, I wrote it. And everything went well. We got on well together.
Brilliant.
And I produced the Garrison magazine for
Could
months.
have worked the system, haven't you?
Well, it was much better than being with the regiment, wasn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
taken out of the regiment.
Good fun.
Yeah, and I
Drive a truck round and write the
so-
stuff.
and
Scrounging all the things you
petrol,
need,
you know.
yeah.
I take it on the back. I'll ask them to put a few gallons if you know. And that's how the army works. The sergeants run the army.
Yeah.
The people think officers. They're not. I don't know about today.
No, I think
But
it's always been the
officers
same.
didn't run the army.
I
The
think that's-
sergeants and sergeant majors run the army.
I think that's every army in the world, I think.
So the first person you're going to see was the regimental sergeant major, and ask his permission to speak with
Go in.
his people.
So there you have it.
And they always said yes, but let me know.
Just make sure I know what's going on.
I'd always tell his secretary or something, you know, there was a bloke secretary, you know, I was coming in or doing it. Let us know. And I always gave them glowing.
Oh, I see. So you flatter them in the magazine as well, then.
Oh, like a flatter before.
So you play both ends.
Yeah,
Nice.
if a wife had a child, you know, we said everybody must rejoice that it's good news. You know.
Oh man, it'd be priceless to get a hold of one of those magazines.
I was priceless, wasn't I?
Yeah, with a magazine as well. I'd just love to see a copy of it. You shame you can keep one
you see,
somewhere.
if you have 15 pages, you've got 30
Yeah.
pages because it's 15 sheets.
Yeah.
You always produce 8, 12, 16. It's got to be
Yeah, even numbers.
even
Yeah.
numbers.
Just a shame you haven't kept a copy somewhere, isn't it?
Why bother? It's part of my life.
Oh, it'd be brilliant now, wouldn't it? It'd be gold dust. Oh, I'd love it. It'd be hilarious.
And people would come in and ask me, you know, they were going to go home and get married, and any chance of putting
Put some
something-
notices in there.
Yeah, all
Yeah,
sorts
brilliant.
of things, requests. The strangest ideas would come. People would want to notice about something. You know, my wife just had a baby, and
Fantastic.
she wanted all the other women to know. You know, so we were.
Oh, so we
doing
came
all-
for the families as well, yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I was doing.
Oh, we've got to find a picture somewhere of you in your sergeant's uniform.
I can't.
Because what was that, late
Yeah,
50s,
couple-
wasn't it? About 57, 58, something like that? 54, or a bit earlier than that, right? Okay.
Well, I was in college, 50 to 54.
Oh, of course, yeah, you're a bit older than my
About
dad, yeah.
50.
Yeah.
5 and 6, I was in the army. My older brother was out there as well, but he was an officer.
He was an officer, wasn't he?
He
Yes.
became a full colonel. Retired as a brigadier, can you believe it?
Amazing.
Aye.
Boy from Splot.
Aye. Aye, God bless him.
Oh, there we are, Sergeant Wilson, thank you very much.
I made Bilko look amateur.
Sergeant Bilko,
I made Bilko look amateur, I promise you.
Absolute gold, isn't it, from Alan Wilson? You wouldn't put him in charge of 2 sheep. He shouldn't have been a second lieutenant, but was actually a captain. You've got to laugh. If Ross was telling me about the manuscripts that are there to be published, that Alan Wilson would just dictate and Barham would be typing away, and this is why editing was so important, because Alan Wilson would just repeat himself. And he did there in that interview, didn't he? He said about the German secretary about 4, maybe 5 times that he had a German secretary. So here we are now at the point of the show where we look at today's chat. And I'll have to apologise right at the start. Couldn't get around it all. There's just so much. And so for anybody I don't mention, my apologies. So a lot of love was expressed for Angie and the boys early on, and also appreciation there for Arnie's progress. There was a lot of that. Patrick pointed out about the one talk early on, there is also a kvenna from North Sweden and Finland, and a venna from the Baltic. And then Andrew pointed out, says that there's a venna in a church in Merthyr Tydfil. James Stephen Emery announced that the Princess of Wales took the salute as the new Colonel of the Irish Guards on their St. Patrick's Day parade. I didn't see that. Thanks for that news, James. Marchell Abrahams told us who Scotta was in response to a question from Dean Morgan. So Scotta being the Egyptian princess who sailed to Ireland round about the time of the migrations of Brutus, I think Marchell said. And then there was chat about the Scots being named after Scotta and the fact that they were originally Irish. Nimble Horse added detail also. And Andy Folds asked if the historical Jesus was born in Bethlehem, or did he die in Bethlehem, West Wales? Good question. Geoffrey Ball invited us to check out David Ewing Jr.'s Skull and Bones videos. Presumably that'll be on YouTube somewhere. And Rich DJ said that Sardis Road in Pontypridd was named after Sardis Chapel. But who named Sardis Chapel? Probably in the revival of the Christianity in the 1800s. Derek Morse and Ancient Ruby loves Marchell's work. I would add, don't we all? George Bodley talked about the River Ebble. I was born in Ebbw in the Rookery, and I was amazed to find through Britain's hidden history that so much of the ancient history occurred around that area, up on the hill behind Llanilleth, where I lived when I was very young. There's the grave of Arthur First's brother up at Brynithel? And there's a little chapel up there dedicated to Saint Ichdid. So that's very ancient history. Gary Taylor loves the rerun of these videos. There's so much of them. They keep giving. And as somebody pointed out, I think it was Ancient Ruby, pointed out that Ross is a gift that keeps giving. He certainly is. Ancient Historia is just recovering from nose surgery, get well soon, and mentions that there will be a new video soon. I think, is it the interview with Marchell Abrahams and Ancient Historia that there was a little bit of chat about? You'll have to correct me on that one if I'm wrong. Illuminati mentioned the 562 comet being what Alan Wilson and Baron Blackett said destroyed the palace of the British kings. And Derek Moores asked, what excuse did the suits give to shut down the dig? Well, I think Alan Wilson says that there were 2 or 3 digs. Local Welsh people, and there's a named person as well, dug it up in the 1800s on more than one occasion. And every time they dug it up, the suits in London got wind of it, came down by train and closed the digs down. Not sure what the excuse was. Ancient Ruby says that we're all amazing and wonderful to do all this research, and I'm sure Ross would be very proud. Well, people like Bob Morgan, Tim Lewis, and there's the other names there I'm not 100% familiar with, are still researching and still undertaking the site visits and putting out the videos as well. Marchell Abrahams has dedicated her new book, The Great Migrations, to Ross. That's a very kind thing to do, and I'm sure everybody who knows Ross will be very appreciative of that. I think Live Show 126 contained the interview with Marchell about her new book. So if you haven't seen the interview, find the live show and possibly the edited version. There's a lot of mistakes in that first show. There was as many mistakes in the second show, slightly less in the third. And there will be mistakes in this one because I'm going to attempt YouTube again. Nimble Horse has pointed out that Alan's chair should have been put in a skip. They can't chuck it out, unfortunately, because it's stuffed with ancient maps. According to my wife Margaret, she says that chair is probably stuffed with countless ancient maps. Alan Whelan said that Alan Wilson hasn't cussed once in the video. I reckon he did. I'm not sure. But his books are filled with his humour. He shouldn't have been put in charge of two sheep. That's typical Alan Wilson, and his books are filled with commentary like that, especially about academia. David Morgan wants to know who's checking in on Alan and Barham these days. And Angie has told me that she has got a visit planned, hopefully sometime in April. So I'm sure she'll be taking the video camera with her. Booble Weave says that Alan Wilson is pure gold. I think we'd all concur with that expression. And Mark Manning points out that seeing these videos highlights points that you may have missed if you saw them the first time round, or may have forgotten. And countless of us new to the movement haven't seen all these videos. 250 I thought I was catching on a run through earlier on, and there's a lot of the videos down the bottom of the list that haven't had as many views as others. So if you could go in and check out some of the videos again, it all adds to the numbers, and the numbers all impress YouTube, and when you impress YouTube you get more benefits from YouTube to carry the work forward. So that brings us almost to the end. I can't actually keep up with the chat when I'm reading the chat. That would be a trick too much. So I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us today, and I hope you enjoyed our time together as much as I enjoyed presenting these few videos. I think we could have one or two more videos actually to take the time a little bit further on another occasion. And don't forget to put your own videos in, even short ones, because they do fill up a whole show when put together. So thank you to Angela and the boys, and to all the volunteers working behind the scenes. Today was Mother's Day, so hopefully lots of us thought of their mothers today. And a lot of us, especially older ones like myself, mothers are in the next world, the world of the other world. That's the Druids called it, and also poignant days for those, who can't get together with the whole family to share Mother's Day. So thank you for those who have joined us today, thinking of mothers. So we'll finish with some music, which is quite traditional. So we're going to go back to Arnie. First video that he gave us, and then his second video, 2 in a row. He is doing exceptionally well, as Ancient Ruby says, and thank you for your enthusiasm that we're all keeping this going. It's not me on my own, it's a total team effort. So sometimes I'm playing some YouTubes of local talent. Now, don't think that it's got to be local talent to me in Wales. If you know someone, a talented singer, musician, who is willing to give us permission to play their videos on the live show, then just drop me a note. Find me on BHH Facebook under members, and suggest somebody for either me to contact, or you can contact them yourself. As long as we get permission, then it won't infringe any copyright. So I'm going to try now, and I'm going to try and use YouTube. And this is where it all goes down the proverbial. Told you I would get it wrong. I know what I've done. Have to put this on screen. Yeah, brilliant. In true tradition, some little errors. I don't think any sound came on there then, did it? There we go. It wouldn't have been a live show without a total mess up, would it? So I don't think any sound came on there, and if it didn't, my apologies. My apologies especially to Natalie Eleanor. I'll have to get it right one week. She was assisted on guitar by Connie Morris, and she was actually singing from Beauty and the Beast, Tale as Old as Time. She did a very good job as well. I enjoyed it. So that's all, folks. And remember, seek and you will find. So until next time, au revoir, adios, auf Wiedersehen, hedwch, and nostar.
Thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed that and found it informative. Britain's Hidden History Group has so much more going on our YouTube channel. The one you're watching now, there's a live stream, 8 o'clock UK time every Sunday. We speak to people like Wilson and Blackett, reprint their old books and help produce new ones. We go researching to the tops of mountains all the way down to the bottoms of caves. Busily recording the books, you can listen to them as well, and looking at mysteries and working out what we're not being taught in schools and preserving it, because the physical and written evidence is rapidly disappearing. You can also find out how to read ancient writing and hieroglyphs using the Welsh language. It's amazing. There's a Facebook group where this is being discussed. Along with a website, you can buy the books and help us. Also, as you can see, there's now a Patreon page where just a few pounds a month will make all the difference in trying to keep the project going and preserve this history for future generations, and also to find out for ourselves what is going on, what is Britain's hidden history. So until the next time, hedwch!